Բարև ձեզ։ Գրադարանում այսօր զրուցում ենք ուկրաինական լիգա.net կայքի գլխավոր խմբագիր Յուլյա Բանկովայի հետ։ Զրույցը կլինի անգլերեն եւ մենք կունենանք հայերեն թարգմանություն։ Hello Yulia. Nice to meet you. Please tell us how your work has been changed since the war started.
On February 24th, all our team, it's more maybe 50 people, editors, journalists, some team, all of us switched to covering war 24 hours per day. So non-stop live translation and news without any long formats was not published since maybe for 2 months. It was only one format, news and live translation, live text translation. No one can sleep actually, and we would like to work all the day and night. Everyone was sitting in the bomb shelters and checking scrolling this Telegram channels all the time. So every member of our team, editors, journalists, SMM editors, and people from marketing team, from commercial department, all of us were switched to producing news.
You are business-oriented media outlet.
Yes. Before the war, and actually now we are more focused on business, finance, and political. But yes, more for business and finance situation.
And how it is now? It's some shifted or continuing with the same.
After maybe 2 or 3 months, more than 2 months, we noticed that people are tired from all this non-stop news, and we started back to our regular work. We started to talk to businesses, ask them how they are, how they work, how they adapt their businesses to the situation, what kind of help do they need, and something like that. So we started to produce other formats to cover economical situation, all this help that Western countries sent to Ukraine. So 2 months work in this very hard temp stopped maybe on early May, and we back the team to regular work, to the text, analytical text, some features, human stories. So yes, and now it's more like we almost stop our this leave chronicle, as we called it, and everyone back to their regular work.
Economy is very important during this war, and the subject for the manipulation as well. Like all this situation with the grain harvest, import, and so on. Do you have stories to explain readers about these topics, and how Russia tries to manipulate these topics?
Yes, of course, but it's obvious for Ukrainians. Ukrainians don't need any other explanations. We just give them fact that they, for example, burn our fields of grain, that they steal grain. And we have, for example, some teams of investigative journalists in Ukraine, and they investigate all these lines and roads, how Russians take this, steal this, ship this grain from Ukraine and transfer it to Turkey, for example, and sold, and then they sell to other countries. So Ukrainians, we just tell story. They don't need an explanation. They believe because we see this. We talk to farmers, we talk to our authorities, the securities services, and we just fix this and see on the satellite pictures we see that they just steal every day our grain.
No, but these stories are important for the external audience, like for the other countries to know the real situation.
Yes, we tell this for other. Unfortunately, we don't have English language version of our website, and just today we launched newsletter for English language people, English speaking people, but we don't have resources to launch an English version of our website. So we have just two languages, Russian and Ukrainian. And in early March, we launched this chronicle live translation in English, but then we stopped it because we didn't have resources. We had to cut our fees maybe for 20-30% because our media is a business, and almost all our incomes were from advertising, and all advertising stopped on the 24th of February. So we had to earn money in order to keep going and to pay salaries for our team. And of course, it mostly were international donors. Yes, so we don't have resources to produce many content in English to explain stories for a foreign audience. But we try to, actually, at least in Russian, we do it. And we are thinking a lot about English now.
So the Ukrainian media continue to get support from the international donors, and it's impossible to survive with the previous mechanism or financial system you had for your media, right?
Correct. We also have support from our members of our community. So Ukrainian media market has its own specific, because it was mostly owned by oligarchs a few years ago. But with Corona crisis, when COVID started, with this COVID crisis, all the media, we lost a lot of ads incomes, and we started to think about live without this advertising, to diversify our incomes. So many of Ukrainian media launched membership model and asked their readers about the board. And people were ready they are ready to pay for the content. They don't use and they don't have experience. Maybe sometimes they don't understand why they have to pay media for the information, because we have a lot of information. We can find it maybe in social media, in other media for free. But why we have to pay for independent media? We had to explain this people, and I think that we were quite good in that. And people start to pay. It was not a lot of money, but it was kind of diversification. And we saw this increasing of reader support on March. We received maybe 4 times more donations as we had before the war. But of course, Ukrainians they became poor, and the Ukrainian economy is not so strong now. We also have crisis, and people don't have a lot of money. Many our readers lost their jobs. So we see that this support getting worse. So now we are thinking how to find to produce content in English and find reader support from English-speaking people, because they have more opportunity than Ukrainians.
Ukrainian journalists are covering the war happening in their own country, like covering their own war. How it is like to work in this kind of these situations?
It's difficult, and it was maybe more difficult question on March for me. But we got an experience, and it's easier now. It's for us, it's black and white, and there is no any concerns about who started this war, and we have just one version. And I think that maybe the problem of the world journalism and world politics is that people in the world, in other countries, in Western countries, they don't get information from Ukrainian journalists because we are on the ground and we know the context. And journalists who came here to cover this war, they don't understand this context. We are following this war and covering this war more than 8 years, and we know how it started and what happened all these 8 years. So I think that it's a lack of information, and from Ukrainian journalists' point of view, it's very important. So it's difficult because we have a lot of propaganda from our side, from Ukrainian authorities. We had blocked databases. It was very difficult to cover this missile strikes because we were not allowed, and actually now we are not allowed to take picture or video right after the bombarding some buildings or streets. We just can, like all the journalists, we can publish these pictures after more than 3 hours, and from the specific angle. So it's very difficult. It's difficult to get to to enter some places, cities, villages near front line. It's difficult to talk to people, to responsible people, to military people. We have to have sometimes you were asked, our journalists were asked about accreditation from Ministry of Defense, even from volunteers. So everyone had to have this accreditation to talk to people, to talk to volunteers, to talk to authorities. And our Ministry of Defense, they told us that more than 10,000 journalists requested this accreditation, and they can't afford this massive information. Too many requests, and they were working so slowly. So it's difficult to get some information. It's difficult to talk to authorities and to get the truth. But we are doing our best. We understand that some data is forbidden to be published in time of war. And of course, we are trying to not support this war propaganda, military propaganda from our. We understand that people need some positive messages to support people, because you're getting crazy when you see and know about losses of Ukraine. It's difficult to continue to work and live when you understand how bad it is. But war is awful, and it's always about death. So we are learning to live with this, and I think that now we are doing better than in the first 3 months. But it's still very difficult to get. Sometimes we notice that Ukrainian authorities, for example, they offer they would like to talk to Western journalists more often than with Ukrainian journalists, because Ukrainian journalists can ask them some critical questions, And also they're interested in Western audience in order to get this weapon and we have two sides of these questions. So it's difficult, but we will learn how to live with it.
So you are fighting against, like, combating Russian propaganda in a one way, and in another way, you are working to tell the public truth and keep public away from the internal propaganda, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and the also important to say that this war is very dangerous for journalists. You know how many journalists died, and that these journalists were very experienced on this specific topic. So some journalists were killed after they worked on different wars, but they died here because there is no rules in this Ukrainian war. Not Ukrainian, but Russian war against Ukraine. So this is also, so we have a lot of front line to struggle with.
So what do you think? What are the main lessons for the media, for the journalists of this war?
I think that the most difficult thing is to stay journalist and do not become an activist. So you have to stay journalist and at the same time you as a citizen of this country, and you have to differentiate and to split these two roles. You have to have this cold mind when you are preparing, when you prepare journalistic formats, material, and you have to be citizens of your country when you communicate with outside audience, when you share some messages about this war. We see all this, and we have to balance between to be useful for the audience and to not harm them with bad news. So I think that this is the most difficult. Two things: to remain journalists and citizens of your country, and at the same time, we have another very difficult question to struggle this internal propaganda and external and Russian propaganda. Two types of propaganda.
Thank you, Julia, for the very interesting and informative conversation. Peace to your country.
That you keep this interest to Ukraine, it's very important for us. Do not become forgotten.